Super Mario Bros. Is a game that needs no introduction. It is a widely recognizable cultural icon around the world, and it saved the video game industry from collapse. How well do you know the game that changed the world? I'm Ethan, and you're tuning in to Nintendo's Greats.
A plumber's job never stops changing, but sometimes it's time to revisit the classics. Despite the new innovations, the sun, the stars, the future, it leads us back to the remakes and re-releases and the repacking. But nothing compares to revisiting the classics. The Super Mario Bros. Classics. The original Super Mario Bros. Was one of the first games I ever played. As long as I can remember, it was one of the games on my family's Wii, alongside other NES titles like Super Mario Bros. 2, 3 and the Lost Levels, Tecmo Bowl, Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr., Pac-Man, and Super C. But my favorite of those NES Virtual Console games was Super Mario Bros. There was just something about it that made it stand out from the other two Mario games. Perhaps it was how easy it was to just pick up and play. Where in Super Mario Bros. 2, you add the whole vegetable mechanic, and in Super Mario Bros. 3, you have a higher entry to play. The original is made so that anyone can play. And though I had another Mario game that I would love to play at the time, and more that I would soon discover, I always enjoyed coming back to this one. But is it nostalgia that keeps us coming back? Or is there something more? Let's find out. I got my NES back at the warehouse. Classic.
You ever played a Super Mario Bros. Game? This game has a pretty familiar story.
One day, the kingdom of peaceful mushroom people was invaded by the Koopa, a tribe of turtles famous for their black magic. The quiet, peace-loving mushroom people were turned into mere stones, bricks,
And even horsehair plants.
and the mushroom kingdom fell into ruin. The only people who can undo the magic spell on the mushroom people and return them to their normal selves is Princess Toadstool, the daughter of the Mushroom King. Unfortunately, she is presently in the hands of the Great Koopa Turtle King. Mario, the hero of the story,
Maybe.
hears about the Mushroom People's plight and sets out on a quest to free the Mushroom Princess from the evil Koopa and restore the fallen kingdom of the Mushroom People.
You are Mario. It's up to you to save the mushroom people from the black magic of the Koopa. Overall, it is a similar story, but there are some parts that have been changed in the modern Mario lore.
Some of this is just lost in translation. For example, the original Japanese manual calls Princess Toadstool Princess Peach, which we have since come to know as her official name in the States. In the NES era, Peach was usually called Princess Toadstool, and Bowser was usually referred to as King Koopa. And while King Koopa was pretty accurate to the original name, Princess Toadstool comes from the fact that she is the princess of the Mushroom People. I remember seeing this in the Super Mario Super Show, but I always just kind of linked the two names together my whole life. The whole issue with the princess's name was resolved in Super Mario 64, where she wrote the letter at the beginning, with her name signed, Princess Toadstool, Peach.
Actually, it was first addressed in Yoshi's Safari.
But I mean, Super Mario 64 really solidified it as part of the official Mario lore in the West, because no one really cares about Yoshi's Safari. Even though shooting Koopas while riding a Yoshi is a pretty cool concept, so many people cared about this cool idea that we never saw Mario with a gun again.
Until the Mario and Rabbids games.
So yeah, that's how Peach got her name in the West. Now what about Bowser?
King Koopa was always Bowser.
You just kind of had to search for it. If you look later in the manual, King Koopa was always Bowser in the US, for some reason.
Another kind of interesting difference. In the US it says you are Mario, while in the original Japanese it says Mario is on the TV.
It kind of holds the same meaning, but I just thought this was interesting. Also, it calls Koopa the Demon King. I guess this is kind of just a blanket term for the bad guy at the end of the game. Or at least in Japan, because Ganon in The Legend of Zelda also uses that title. It seems to have stuck with Ganon a bit more in the translation.
Now, back to the game. Level 1-1 isn't just the most iconic level in video game history.
It's also genius in its design. It is perfect whether it's your first video game level ever, or if you are a video game professional. The controls are simple enough for anyone to get. The directional pad is where Mario walks, right to move to the right, and left to move to the left. Now, if you need a little speed, holding the B button while pressing right or left makes Mario run. In this game, we find our first enemy in the form of this little Goomba. For those who have not played a video game in their entire life, this serves as a learning lesson that we must avoid these little guys. The A button serves as the way to avoid obstacles in the form of the jump. The longer you hold A, the higher Mario jumps. By hitting things, you realize that these different blocks do different things. These flashing question mark blocks give Mario a coin, where 100 coins gives Mario an extra life, on top of the 3 he started out with. Some even give you power-ups. The first power-up you will see is the mushroom. By letting Mario collide into this mushroom, he gets bigger. I guess technically the magic mushroom makes Mario Super Mario, but I'll just call him Big Mario, and normal Mario, Small Mario, because that's slightly less confusing and makes the difference more distinguishable than Super Mario and just Mario. Now, if Big Mario jumps into bricks, they break. Some bricks even have coins, power-ups, or a chain of coins. Even as Small Mario, you can still find these items, but you can only break bricks as Big Mario. But really, the only reason I could think of that you would need to break bricks is to access somewhere higher that would be inaccessible as Small Mario. While in the Big Mario form, a block that would normally give you a magic mushroom now gives you this flower. Unlike the moving magic mushroom, which you need to actively avoid, the flower does not move, so this teaches the player to actively try to get the flower. Getting the fire flower makes Big Mario become Fiery Mario. Now if you press B, Mario shoots fireballs.
The more you discover in this level, the more you learn about the mechanics of the game.
Most of the time, pressing down on green pipes doesn't do anything, but on a select few green pipes, Mario can travel underneath the stage in these bonus rooms, which are usually filled with coins, and let Mario skip part of the level. Hidden in this random brick, Mario can find a Starman. This gives Mario a brief invincibility, which usually is not super important, like ever. But it gives you a second where you can run as far as you want without having to worry about enemies, but falling in pits still makes you lose a life.
Yeah, basically useless.
According to the story set up in the manual, you might remember that King Koopa turned the peaceful mushroom people into mere stones and bricks. It goes to say that the mushroom people who turned into bricks reward you for punching them by giving you power-ups. I guess this explains where the power-ups come from. But the ones who don't give you anything and break into pieces, is that just Mario killing them?
I guess this game is a lot deeper than it intends to be.
Some of the mushroom people were even turned invisible. These ones are apparently the richest ones, because the first one you can find gives Mario one of the rarest power-ups, a 1-up mushroom, which gives Mario an extra life. The level ends with Mario lowering Koopa's flag in the small castle. Now, you can learn all of these game mechanics in 1-1 because it has the perfect mix of enemies and open space. Now on to level 1-2. The second level serves as the direct antithesis to level 1. It has more secrets than the first, rewarding the curious player. The main path of the level is made to slow down the player, to learn to avoid enemies, and focused on landing their jumps. But the game rewards the curious player by giving them the ability to skip over the entire level by walking on the ceiling. By exiting through the pipe at the end of the level, Mario exits the underground area back to the overworld with another flagpole. But if you continue above the level, you will find the first of 3 warp zones in Super Mario Bros. This one gives Mario access to either World 2, 3, or 4. Also, we see Piranha Plant for the first time, an enemy so popular that they were put into Super Smash Bros. Level 1-3. This level focuses on jumping from platform to platform, helping the player grow in their ability to control Mario in the air. The level ends with Mario entering his first big castle. This is level 1-4, the first big castle level. These levels increase the tension with eerie music, much more difficult platforming, spinning fire things, and podoboos. Yes, these fireballs that come out of the lava in the castle levels are sentient beings. They're also apparently Koopa's protectors. At the end of the stage, we find ourselves face to face with the Koopa King himself.
Now, I suck at Super Mario Bros., so I usually don't even make it this far. I usually just use the warp pipes straight to World 4 and die from a spiny. I actually suck at most video games. Thankfully, in recent years, we've been graced by the greatest creation in all of video game history. The rewind feature. Now I can actually see what happens next in this game.
We're back, face to face with the Sorcerer King. Maybe if I time my jumps right, I can defeat him.
And that's it. I finally beat Super Mario Bros. For the NES. After time and time again, over and over and over, just trying those first couple levels, finally beating the last one, beating King Koot. Wait, the princess? She isn't here? It's just one of the mushroom retainers? Princess is in another castle? So yeah, sorry to spoil a 40-year-old game, but this big castle is just the first of many. It's quite surprising how many fake Koopas I had to go through to actually make it to the final world. Okay, she's not in the second castle. Oh, there's another world? That's fine. Okay, this one's it. Wait, another castle? How many castles are there in the Mushroom Kingdom? Princess is in another castle? Let me guess. The princess is in another castle.
So, after 7 worlds, I think this is the final fight between Mario and the King of Turtles himself.
Nope, I give up. I need a second before I take on yet another world.
Worlds 2 through 7 sort of blend together sometimes, but there are definitely some standout levels.
2-1.
This level has the first bonus room in the sky, only able to be reached by a secret beanstalk.
2-2.
This is the first underwater level. You stay afloat by constantly pressing A. I just try to get through these levels as fast as possible, because it gets pretty tiring. These waters are infested with a fish creature called the Cheep Cheep, and a squid creature called the Blooper. Don't get too close to the bottom of the level, because the strong tides at the bottom can take Mario under.
2-3.
In the next level, Cheep Cheep is back. She can fly and attack Mario above ground.
3-1.
It's night. It's also the first level with the Hammer Bros. Also at the end you can get infinite extra men from this Koopa's shell that gives you 1-ups if you jump on him for more than 8 consecutive jumps.
4-1.
It's day again, and this is the first level with Lakitu. He throws spinies, which are little turtles that Mario cannot jump on because of their spike-infested back, and Lakitu has a seemingly infinite amount of them. It is possible to kill Lakitu, but it's usually pretty difficult, and even if you do, another clone of Lakitu comes and replaces him.
Well, we all know now that Lakitu is a turtle floating in a cloud. Back when this game originally came out, the Mario lore wasn't as firmly established. While I personally loved to read the manuals and always had my facts straight, some people I know
Thought Lakitu was a girl's floating head. The cloud was the face. The glasses were actually a bow, and Lakitu's skin was the hair.
they looked at me like I was crazy, saying it was a turtle floating in a cloud.
Well, look who's laughing now, James.
4-2.
This level is notable because it has 2 warp zone areas. You can access the first warp zone by traveling the same path as in 1-2, but it only has one pipe to World 5. The second is a little more hidden. If you hit this brick, a hidden beanstalk is unveiled, taking Mario to another sky area. This warp zone has pipes to World 6, 7, and 8.
4-4.
It's a maze, but it's pretty easy.
After that, it's basically just harder versions of what we've already seen, combining elements from previous stages to make new levels. And while it's still great, the further you go, it begins to feel less and less memorable. I mean, look at the stages side by side. Yeah, super creative, Mr. Miyamoto.
6-3.
It looks slightly different than the rest.
It's gray.
It indeed is gray.
But then, we find World 8, the ultimate challenge.
World 8 begins with a level that takes everything found in the normal grassland overworld levels and increases the difficulty to the max. This is the longest level in the game, and it shows.
It never gets too difficult, but once you think it's over, you're only halfway done.
This clearly looks like the end, but it's not. And this happens several times.
8-2.
The next level takes what level 1 started and brings Lakitus and some bullet bills into the mix.
8-3.
This level cranks the difficulty up. Again! In the background, we can see the final castle. This level is flooded with Hammer Bros, and if you make it through all the enemies, you can enter the final castle.
8-4.
Now, according to my sources, this is the final level in Super Mario Bros.
This final stage is a mess. It will cost you many lives. Not even just because you die, but because you will run out of time. This stage is a maze. One wrong move and whoops, you're back at the start of the level. The flying fish are back, and there's an underwater area with spinning fire things.
How does that even work?
Once we get to the end, the final fight is guarded by a Hammer Bro and a Podoboo. Then we are face to face with the actual King Koopa. And the fight is pretty anticlimactic, as it's basically the same difficulty as the last 7.
Looks like I finally beat it.
And there's Princess Toadstool. Thank you, Mario. Your quest is over.
Yep, I did it. I beat Super Mario Bros. We present you with a new quest? What?
Well, I guess I have no choice.
Well, it was almost exactly the same.
Just some small changes that make it slightly more annoying. The most annoying thing is that every little Goomba is replaced with a buzzy beetle. The other changes are just slight things like smaller moving platforms and faster enemies. And after we beat the entire game again, Peach asks us to go on another quest. But, as you may know, there is no third quest in Super Mario Bros., so she's basically just asking you to do the same thing over again, which, no thank you. So that's Super Mario Bros. While the original version of Super Mario Bros. Is really iconic, and playing it on original hardware is great, what is the best way to play this game? The most easily accessible today would be through the Nintendo Classic service on the NES app, but we've seen tons of re-releases of this game throughout the years, ever since its release in 1985, and it all started on the Famicom. But there are so many other ways to play this masterpiece of a game. The first alternative is the Famicom Disk System release. While the Famicom Disk System version is essentially the same game, aside from the minus world glitch being completely different, a version of the game that is actually different in interesting ways is Versus Super Mario Bros. Vs. Super Mario Bros. Itself was released alongside a variety of Nintendo games under this Vs. moniker when they were ported to the arcades with some minor changes. And though this seems to be your average Super Mario Bros. Experience on the surface, there are some changes that improve on and ruin the game all at once.
First off is this joystick.
Playing Super Mario Bros. With a D-pad just feels right, and while playing with a joystick is by no means unplayable, it is certainly harder to perform as precise controls in some situations.
But that's kind of just a nitpick on my part. What really grinds my gears is, nothing. This is a pretty good port, and it's actually pretty accurate to the original game. But, for some reason, I suck way more at this version.
Perhaps it's because there's no rewinding or save states, but I think what really makes this more difficult are the changes to the levels. There certainly are a lot, and while I would like to go through all of them, I still have a bunch of other versions of this game to dissect, so let's just cover the basics.
First, level 1-2 removed these bricks.
That is obviously because of the minus rolls, which is still irrelevant to this discussion.
Level 1-3 replaced our buddy, the Infinite Life Turtle, with these little Goombas.
Next is the fact that all repeat levels are gone. Instead, they, for the most part, took the more difficult courses and replaced the original with it. Namely, what was originally 7-2 is now 2-2, 7-3 is now 2-3, and 6-4 is now 2-4. 1-3 stayed the same.
Oof, that was a close one.
Also, 4-4 and 5-5 switched for some reason. But these next changes just might blow your mind.
So, in Japan, there's like this game called Super Mario Bros. 2, and it's nothing like our game, Super Mario Bros. 2. Their version is more like the original Super Mario Bros. In fact, they call our version of Super Mario Bros. 2 Super Mario USA, while we call their version of Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels.
This is because the game is super different, and Miyamoto figured Americans would never figure out how to jump that far or navigate wind currents.
And he's right.
But since arcades wanted quarters, and Nintendo loves their fanbase so much, this release of the game includes some of those levels to replace the duplicate levels or similar themed levels.
And these include
the Lost Levels 1-4 replacing the original 1-4, their 2-2 replacing our 3-2, their 4-3 replacing our 6-3, their 5-4 replacing our 6-4, their 6-2 replacing our 7-2, and their 6-3 replacing our 7-3. Other small details were changed in levels to up the difficulty a bit, but one nice addition was
there is a leaderboard.
Now, you probably won't remember any of this or care about any of this, because you'll probably never choose to play this game over the original Super Mario Bros.
Even though it's available on Arcade Archives on the Nintendo Switch.
And that is because 6-3 isn't gray anymore because they changed it to 5-3.
Enough of this piece of, history, and on to a piece of garbage.
Nintendo, wanting to get their brand out to everyone possible, did the unthinkable. Let a company make a PC version of Super Mario Bros? Ah yes, the crappy PC port. Super Mario Bros. Special. It sure is something special, but not for the right reasons.
It's especially bad.
Unlike the smooth side-scrolling of the NES Classic, this game goes screen by screen, which, for a game like this, does not work.
But there are some exclusive features that make this almost a completely new game.
On top of all of the levels just being completely different, enemies from the Donkey Kong and Mario Bros. Games appear in this version, including the Sidestepper, those goofy crab creatures from Mario Bros., the Fighter Fly, that bug thing from Mario Bros., the ever-iconic icicle from Mario Bros., the barrels that Donkey Kong throws in the hit game Donkey Kong, and the fireballs from Donkey Kong. But more than just enemies are the original power-ups, including the hammer, which works exactly how it does in Donkey Kong. The wing, which makes Mario fly. He's just swimming. Who are they kidding? Additionally, you can find a bee that looks like the Hudson Soft logo, and it gives you 8,000 points. A clock which gives Mario an additional 100 seconds found later in the game, and a lucky star which is basically just a POW block before POW blocks existed. Overall, this amalgamation of random Mario stuff from across what was the Mario series at the time seems to be an interesting concept, but due to how terrible the computer runs the game, it is barely playable, and I personally do not recommend.
Perhaps its most famous or infamous release, Super Mario Bros. Plus Duck Hunt.
I don't even have the zapper, so really all I can do is play Super Mario Bros. But there is another release very similar to this one, the 3-in-1 title, Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt World Class Track Meet. Now this would probably be the best of the 3 versions of Super Mario Bros., but I don't have the power pad either. Both of these were pack-in titles with different sets of the NES. Also, one interesting thing I found out about that second re-release is using a cheat code with this piece of illegal technology. This version of Super Mario Bros. Can be played with the updated style of what we in the States know as the Lost Levels, Super Mario Bros. 2 in Japan. And while it is novel to play the original with the sequel's graphics, there are some graphical mishaps, like this pipe and these background features. But overall, it is worth it because playing the same exact game over and over again does get tiring. But in the PAL regions, they had a different Mario bundle. Super Mario Bros. Plus Tetris plus Nintendo World Cup. I like Tetris, and that's all I have to say about it. World Cup, that's like soccer. One odd release is the Japanese exclusive All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. This is essentially a reskin of the original Mario Bros. On the Famicom Disk System that uses the basics of the Lost Levels graphics for everything except the enemies, which are all completely new sprites based on people from a talk show. In addition to that, there isn't a second player option, but a Luigi option that works exactly how it does in the Lost Levels. And the entire first world takes place during the night, which I assume is in reference to how the night show took place at night. Besides the Lost Levels A through D worlds, there are also a lot of other strange changes that make this a really odd piece of the Super Mario Bros. History.
Then, jumping over to the Super Nintendo is Super Mario All-Stars, which features all 4 NES/Famicom games.
And this version of Super Mario Bros. Is somehow worse. For some reason, the physics in the game are all wonky. I myself can't really even notice it, but from what I've researched, it has to do with his jump. Also, the way he breaks through blocks is sort of non-existent. I guess now that I really look at it, it is kind of noticeable. But besides the weird physics that I don't really mind, there's new boss fight music. And there's new animated cutscenes when you save the toads. And there's even a sound that goes off if you are incorrect during one of the castle mazes. But the best feature of all is the new backgrounds. They look really nice. The snow background is probably my favorite, which is really strange because I'm usually not a big snow world guy. It seems to debut in the first of 2 levels of the third world, so it's night. This is cool because it is kind of a twist on night levels. But luckily we do see normal night levels later on, so this doesn't really take away from the green world at night theme. But where I think the snow world shines is during the daytime level, World 5-1. The Mario-esque hills in the background evoke a sort of cotton candy theming, which we've seen frequently now in the form of the Candy Winter Wonderlands that we see in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and World, and even Donkey Kong Bonanza on the Nintendo Switch 2, though we would see the opposite in the Layer Cake Desert. The second most interesting theme, though, is the autumn theme, which plays a strong contrast to the snow theme, and it is really not something we've seen in Mario platformers afterwards. Besides that, the underwater stages look beautiful, and then, contrasted with the final underwater stage in the Ruins Castle, it is very stark and interesting. The athletic sky levels, having Goomba statues in the background, is a really cool take on the level. The underground and traditional grass levels are better than ever, and the fortress lead up to 8-4 is epic. But many forget that this game is not a SNES exclusive. Nintendo did the very thinkable and released the same exact game on the Wii. So why should anyone prefer this game over the original All-Stars? Well, you shouldn't, because it's the exact same game. This is literally just a ROM on a disc. And for $30 when it originally released, it might have confused some people when Super Nintendo games were only selling for $8 on the Wii Shop channel. With the 4 original versions of the game, each being on the Wii separately though, it probably didn't make sense to charge $8 for the same 4 games that were separately $21. So for a 25th anniversary title, releasing the game for $30 probably didn't seem that strange from a marketing perspective. Eventually, the game would only cost $20 under the Nintendo Selects brand, but the original $30 title came with an extra feature: a Super Mario history book and a Super Mario History CD containing such great tracks such as Pipe Travel / Power Down and Hurry Up. Yeah, I'm sure everyone was excited when half of the songs listed were just sound effects from the original Super Mario Bros. Luckily, the other Mario 25th anniversary game that the Wii got was a little better. But enough of that, and on to something a little more handheld. The first portable port of Super Mario Bros. Found itself in the form of Super Mario Bros. Deluxe on the Nintendo Game Boy Color. It was released to critical acclaim, even being labeled as the greatest Game Boy Color game ever. Not only did it feature the main game of Super Mario Bros., called Original 1985 in-game, but also featured the entirety of the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2, called The Lost Levels in the West. But here it's called Super Mario Bros. For Super Players, riffing off the subtitle in the original Japanese version. But on top of that, there was also a challenge mode, which adds red coins hidden throughout the levels to bring an added challenge for players that completed the main levels. On top of that, there was also a Yoshi egg hidden somewhere, though it is better hidden than the standard coins. There's also a badge awarded for points, giving you a reason to actually try and rack up the points. All of these features blend together, creating a challenging challenge for challenged players like me. I could barely find all 4 red coins, and I had to look up a playthrough of the game just to confirm there was a Yoshi egg in 1-1. But maybe one day I'll actually tackle all of the challenges. You vs. Boo. This game mode is also challenging, but I find it more interesting than the last one. First off, we get original level designs specifically suited for this new racing gameplay. What is the new gameplay though? Well, it is exactly what the title says. You, as Mario, race a Boo. I actually beat the Boo ones, so yeah, I'm kind of an expert at this game. The normal multiplayer versus mode. To my knowledge, this is just you versus Boo, but instead of a fake ghost, you actually have to play against a real-life person. Since I have no friends with this game, it has been kind of difficult to find someone to test this out with. It's cool thinking about what it could be like, though. And a toy box a la the minigames in Super Mario 64 DS and New Super Mario Bros. But not that peak. They actually kind of suck. Overall, it is a really cool expansion to Super Mario Bros. But the main game is not ideal. While screen crunch usually doesn't bother me, it is pretty unavoidable here, especially being so familiar with Super Mario Bros. This definitely won't be the last time we'll be looking at this Game Boy Color masterpiece. But before that, the classic NES series on the Game Boy Advance, where we would get the second version of Super Mario Bros. On a handheld, which sort of fixes the screen crunch issues by crunching the pixels instead of the screen. But that's all of the classic NES games on the Game Boy Advance, so this game isn't alone on that weird condition. With the NES natively being 256 by 240 pixels, they had to shrink it down to the GBA's 240 by 160. So it was either that or normal screen crunch, and I think they chose wisely. It really doesn't hinder the gameplay. I guess this answered my only problem with Deluxe, but taking away all the cool extra features just makes this an inferior version of Super Mario Bros. And nothing more. Additionally, unlike the full translation to the Game Boy Color, this game is emulated, so it's less cool, I guess. Talking about emulated games. Yes, the Virtual Console. The Wii Virtual Console version of Super Mario Bros. Was literally just an emulated version of Super Mario Bros. There's nothing wrong with this version. I guess the only thing I can talk about is the emulation quality of NES games on the Wii. I've never been one to gripe about something as stupid as emulation quality, but if you're dragging me down to this level, I guess I can gripe about more things. So, a
official NES emulation. So first, the cons. Number 1, it's not pixel perfect. Number 2, input lag. And number 3, limited save state abilities. Now on to the pros. Pros. It has a cool blurriness that is very NES. It has a cool lagginess to the controls. It has limited ability to save states, like the original NES. That was the Wii, so onto the Wii U. Blue. The cons of the Wii U Virtual Console. The Wii U. It's on the Wii U. The pros of the Wii U Virtual Console. It's on the Wii U.
While the Wii U did see Nintendo enter the world of HD, the Virtual Console never really seemed to take advantage of the fact that the console was capable of outputting 1080p, though most games would still be 720 upscaled to 1080. But either way, the Virtual Console games still had slightly murky, dull graphics, which didn't make that much sense. Not that I noticed then, or care now. But for the 3DS, there was of course the Ambassador program, released in 2011, and then the official release of the Virtual Console the next year.
So before the Wii U, who made that? Oh, okay. The cons. I figured out that I'm not qualified to give my opinions on emulation. The pros. It's Super Mario Bros. Portably, but it's the actual game this time.
The 3DS Virtual Console and Ambassador program had pretty good emulation for NES games. Probably. I think it looks more crisp, but is that good for emulation? I know some people like using CRT shaders to make them more shaded and less crisp. Most games that try to recreate 3D effects were banking on slight blur effect to the pixels to make them seem more 3D. What does this have to do with Super Mario Bros?
Insert slick transition between the topics. ROM hacks, eh?
While ROM hacks are better known as fan things, Nintendo did some of their own official modifications to the original Mario over the years, and since I can only count to 3, we will cover one for the Wii, 3DS, and Wii U. And that's exactly how many I remember existing. Number 1. Well, do you remember from like 8 minutes ago, the 25th anniversary of Super Mario Bros? It brought another version of Super Mario Bros on the Wii, and our first modification, where Nintendo replaced all of the question marks with 25ths. Besides that, this is just the Virtual Console release. Strangely enough, it was only released in Japan, Australia, Hong Kong, and Taiwan on a special red Wii, or random white Wii in Australia. Number 2. With NES Remix 2's release in 2014, as the year of Luigi was reaching its end, it received a modified version of the original Super Mario Bros. But with Luigi? This is probably the most interesting of the modifications, as Luigi has his higher jump from the lost levels. Fortunately, his traction is still the same as in the original, though I think it probably would have been more on brand for the slippery Luigi, with it being a consistent trait in most of his playable appearances, even since the lost levels. The most obvious change with this game, besides Luigi, is that all the levels are flipped in reverse. Everything else is pretty much identical otherwise, except when you defeat Bowser at the end of the game, not only do we see Peach, but Mario as well.
To Does that mean Super Luigi Bros. Was just Luigi following Mario this whole time? Or was Mario kidnapped as well? Is this some alternate reality? Or was it just an Easter egg the developers decided to put in?
Number 3. On a more portable side of the equation, NES Remix Ultimate. This was where we got Speed Mario Bros., which is just the NES ROM, but faster. There's only one player option, with the second being replaced with press start. If you get to the end, there's also an applause track. I didn't get to the end, but that's what the World Wide Web had to say. So I guess at this point in time, the 3DS was the definitive way to play Super Mario Bros. On the go, with the original Virtual Console or free ambassador versions. But then, in the year 2017, Nintendo released a Wii U with detachable controller sides that had the console part shoved inside of the screen, called the Nintendo Switch. Instead of using the, at that point, 10-year-old Virtual Console formula, Nintendo decided to do exactly what the fans were asking for at the time, and make a reasonably priced subscription service. Ah yes, the Nintendo Switch Online! Rather than charging $5 per 30-year-old NES game, you could have access to all of them for a solid $20. And compared to the NES Mini that had just released with Super Mario Bros. 5 months previous... Wait, 1 second. NES Classic Edition. It plays the games great. I don't know why I'm still doing this. I don't know anything about emulation. So yeah, the NES Mini was 30 games for $60, while Nintendo Switch Online had their collection of NES games for $20 per year. When the subscription released in September 2018, it had 20 games that were a less quality collection compared to the 30 on the NES Classic Edition, though the subscription was really for online games. So the 20 NES games were just a benefit at the time. But more games would come over time, even if it would still be missing the heavy hitters due to the licensing and companies wanting to release their own compilations. But the trickle of games over the last 7 years has been pretty good, seeing that there's now 90 NES games, and counting, on the $20 subscription. The collective cost of all of these on the Virtual Console would have been the cost of a new Nintendo Switch 2 console, and adding the cost of the over 80 Super Nintendo games and over 40 Game Boy games, it's probably worth it. Okay, enough defending the weirdest online subscription. On to NES Online pros and cons.
Why am I still doing this?
Also, Super Mario All-Stars is on the SNES service, if you want to play that version for some reason. The only downside is no Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, which was on the 3DS Virtual Console. They're probably waiting for Mario's Big 40 like they did for the original on its 35th. Who knows, though? Since its 35th anniversary was brought up, one notable release for that was Super Mario Bros. 35, which sort of is a version of the original game. It essentially is just the original Super Mario Bros., but it's a battle royale, like Tetris 99. But you probably already knew that. And just to be slightly exhaustive for this list of different versions of Super Mario Bros., there is a mostly lost version from BS Super Mario Bros. Collection, which was released on the Super Nintendo's Satellaview service. This game as a whole was released in waves, similar to the other popular Satellaview titles from Zelda and F-Zero, and the first wave, which contained the original Super Mario Bros., was lost. Essentially, the broadcasts were just the Super Mario All-Stars version of the game, and only the first 3 worlds. But there was a map that was exclusive to this game. Parts of Mario 3 were recovered, but none of the original portion has resurfaced yet. Now, of all those releases, what's the best way to play? Game & Watch Super Mario Bros. Not to be confused with Super Mario Bros. On the Game & Watch. Well, it is up to the player, but I would probably say on the Nintendo Switch family of systems. Unless you have an NES. Really, any way that doesn't have the screen crunch screen is fine. If you want everything the original game has to offer, then I would definitely suggest Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, despite the screen crunch. But that isn't really viable since the 3DS eShop closed down, unless you own a Game Boy Color. But all the extra content makes it a cool follow-up for a more complete experience.
Super Mario Bros. Deluxe definitely does deserve a deeper look, but it's getting late, so... Well, that's Super Mario Bros. On the NES. It's amazing to see how far we've gone, yet we always seem to come back to this one game. Super Mario Bros. Still and always will be a classic. It seemed that this was just the foundation, and with every game that came after it, the gameplay got more fine-tuned and more expansive. Super Mario Bros. Still and always will be a classic. And frankly, it's sad that some still overlook this game, even being as in the spotlight as it is. Its simplicity is one of the reasons I got into video games in the first place. And while it may just be nostalgia, or the fact that it was the first game talking, I think that this is still the best Super Mario Bros. On the NES. Doesn't change the fact that the games got undeniably better in the later releases.